A24 has one lane shut, with normal traffic anticipated between 7 and 7:15. And on the trains, there are disruptions to Chiltern Railway services to and from London Marylebone. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very, very good evening to you. This is GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Coming up on the show tonight, in a minute now, we'll be taking you live to central London where Prince Harry will be addressing the Well Child Awards on his UK visit after visiting the late Queen's grave earlier on today. But in the meantime, as the new Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has a migrant mountain to climb, I'll be talking to Maggie Oliver about why deporting grooming gang perpetrators to Pakistan surely has to be the government's top priority. And meanwhile, I'll bring you an exclusive story revealing that 321 companies have faced fines totalling an astonishing £18 million for hiring illegal migrant workers, and that is just in one quarter, and that includes the government contractor. Now, would you also be joined by the man behind the analysis that suggests that the total Chagos deal could cost £47 billion, £12 billion more than even feared, and dwarfing that figure of £3 billion given by Sir Keir Starmer. Plus, the debate of the day, is it time for a Tory-Reform pact? We'll be holding a blockbuster debate live in the studio, a finale between Lee Anderson and Sir Jacob at Rees-Mogg. That's all coming on tonight's blockbuster of a show, but first, here's Katie Bowen.
Martin, thank you. The headlines at 7:01. And let's start with some breaking news tonight. Firefighters are currently responding to a possible hazardous materials incident at Heathrow Airport. Heathrow have confirmed in a statement that Terminal 4 check-in has been closed and evacuated while emergency services respond to that incident. Passengers are being asked not to travel to Terminal 4, and National Rail have also confirmed that trains are not stopping at the terminal. London Fire Brigade said specialist crews have been deployed to carry out an assessment of the scene, and part of the airport has been evacuated as a precaution while firefighters respond. We'll bring you more on that breaking story and more pictures on that breaking story as we get them. To France, where tonight Prime Minister Francois Bayrou has been ousted from Parliament after losing a confidence vote. MPs debated and voted on the motion this afternoon, with Bayrou losing the vote 364 to 194. The country has been plunged into fresh political chaos as Bayrou is expected to tender his resignation tomorrow morning. President Emmanuel Macron faces a choice between calling a snap election or picking a fifth Prime Minister in less than 2 years. Bayrou has only been in office since December. Back at home, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says the UK could suspend visas from countries that do not play ball and agree to return deals for migrants. Ms Mahmood has hosted a security alliance today alongside ministers from countries like America and Canada to discuss the rise of people smuggling gangs. It comes after more than 1,000 migrants crossed the Channel on the Home Secretary's first full day in office, bringing the total this year to more than 30,000 arrivals. Ms Mahmood has vowed to do whatever it takes to stop small boat crossings. Well, the new Home Secretary has also confirmed that she will not be running for Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Labour MPs have until Thursday to secure the support of colleagues in Westminster if they wish to replace Angela Rayner. Candidates must get nominations from 80 MPs, a fifth of the total on the Labour benches, by 5 o'clock on Thursday. The result of the process will be announced on the 25th of October. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's company, INEOS, has abandoned its UK investment plans over what they call Britain's unstable fiscal regime. The chief executive of INEOS's energy division said that the company will now divert plans to invest £3 billion to the United States instead. The company was forced to shut the Grangemouth oil refinery earlier this year. And Prince Harry has arrived at the Wellchild Awards in central London after visiting Windsor Castle earlier, where he laid a wreath and privately paid respects to the late Queen. He's in the UK for the first time in 5 months. The Duke of Sussex has been patron of Wellchild, a charity which supports seriously ill children and their families, for 17 years. And sticking with royal news, the Princess of Wales has joined her husband at an engagement to mark the 3rd anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's death. Kensington Palace sources say the Princess of Wales was keen to join her husband to commemorate and celebrate the life of the late Queen. Those are the latest headlines now. More on that Heathrow evacuation shortly, but now let's go back to Martin.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorby. Now, it's no secret that the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has a massive migrant mountain to climb, as almost 1,100 crossed the Channel on Saturday alone, her first day in the job, taking the total for the year to an astonishing 30,000 illegal crossings. Well, in what appears to be a sign that Labour is running scarce from Reform UK, here's what Ms Mahmood had to say earlier on today.
We think that there is interesting space for collaboration, particularly on how we deal with countries who do not take their citizens back. So making sure that we are able to return out of our countries people who have no right to be in our countries and send them back to their home countries. So for the countries that do not play ball, we've been talking about how we can take much more coordinated action between the Five Eyes countries. And for us, that means including possibly the cutting of visas in the future, just to say, you know, we do expect countries to play ball, play by the rules, and if one of your citizens has no right to be in our country, you do need to take them back.
Well, the move appears to be straight out of the Reform UK playbook. But I wanted to discuss this today with my next guest, the astonishing Maggie Oliver. Is the deportation of rape gang perpetrators back to Pakistan? Should be that our top priority. So far, we've managed to send none of them, precisely 0 of them back. And so surely the priority ought to be pressurising the Pakistani government, not just with visas, but with tariffs and sanctions and perhaps the threat of a trade war to take back their criminals. Well, I'm joined now by the former Detective Constable for Greater Manchester Police and the grooming gangs whistleblower, Maggie Oliver. Maggie, it's always an absolute pleasure to have your esteemed company, and it's been way too long. Welcome to GB News Tonight. And I wanted to put it to you, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood talking a tough fight. Let's suspend visas for those who won't take people back. But today we put it to number 10, so which countries might that be, Home Secretary? And they wouldn't give us an answer. This is tough talk, but with no actual throughput. And Maggie Oliver, I wanted to put it to you, surely top of the list should be Pakistan. They've taken no rapists back, none of their own grooming gang perpetrators, and yet still, in return, we gave them an airline back into the UK. Should Pakistan be top of the visa ban list?
Good evening, Martin. Well, in my opinion, absolutely. You know, I witness every day, and I have for the past 20 years, actually, the horrors that the victims suffer when their abusers are released back into the community after serving prison sentences. You know, victims' rights come at the bottom of the pile. And, you know, I've heard the new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, say, you know, her words, they are words. I have heard those same words and had conversations with Priti Patel, with Suella Braverman, with Rishi Sunak, and words are easy. Action doesn't follow. And, you know, we've become the laughingstock of the world because we seem to be powerless to impose these sanctions and returning horrific criminals back to the countries from which they have come. You know, I'm known, Martin, as you know, for the Rochdale case, and I've seen, you know, 3 of the abusers who were meant to be deported on release from prison play the system for years. They have had millions of pounds in legal aid fighting deportation. Lawyers are getting rich on the back of this. And, you know, for me, when I hear one of these rapists arguing that he shouldn't be deported, for instance, because he's entitled to a family life in this country and his son needs a role model, it makes me feel physically sick. We absolutely should be imposing these sanctions, and we should be halting visas from countries like Pakistan. You know, Pakistan is dependent in many ways on the UK. We should not be powerless to impose the rule of law in our country. And when a judge orders deportation on release, we should make sure that that happens. You know, even in October 2022, 2 of these abusers, Adil Khan and Abdul Rauf, they lost their final appeal. After millions of pounds had been spent, they were meant to be deported. We are yet another 3 years down the road. They are still here. They are still using our system to fight what should have happened 10 years ago. So, you know, I hear these words again today, Martin, and I don't see a will to do it. I see these as empty promises that never come to fruition. And I don't expect anything different from this Home Secretary either, unfortunately.
And Maggie Oliver, the two monsters you mentioned there, that's the word for them. That's a word I'm allowed to use on national TV. Abdul Rauf and Adil Khan. They're making a mockery of the system. They simply decided they're no longer Pakistani. They've renounced their citizenship because they don't want to go back to Pakistan because they might face some tough justice, and successive governments are utterly impotent to get these scumbags out of the country. And it begs that very important question you just asked. Why should we expect anything to change under Shabana Mahmood?
Well, you know what? When those 2 men went to prison, they did have dual citizenship. You know, send them back to Pakistan to serve their sentences. Don't give them an opportunity to tear up their Pakistani passport. These are simple things. You know, I see it every day. And with Adil Khan, I mean, he came out of prison back into Rochdale. His victim, who he had got pregnant at just 13, didn't even know he was out of prison. She bumped into him in the local supermarket. They are making a mockery of the system. And if we as a country cannot uphold the law that orders this in a court after a trial, after all the evidence has been presented, what does that say about our criminal justice system? They are making a mockery of it. And, you know, in my charity, the Maggie Oliver Foundation, we are picking up the pieces of destroyed lives for victims every single day who live in fear of bumping into these monsters, as you say. And they have no rights. They can't call on legal aid to fight their corner. They are powerless to do anything at all. And as our country has got things completely back to front, and it's about time somebody took control. But I don't believe that this government is any better than the last government. You know, I have yet to see action follow all these promises that never come to fruition on so many fronts, Matthew. As you know, you've seen it many, many times, just like me, Martin. And it actually breaks my heart. Deport them to serve the sentences in those countries. I don't care about their human rights. They forfeit their human rights when they rape multiple children, destroying children's lives forever. Those children never recover from what's happened to them. These men, if they want a family life, go and live it with your family back in Pakistan. They shouldn't be here. They should not be living back in the places where they abuse children, and they shouldn't be swallowing up millions of pounds in legal aid. I just find it horrific.
Well, Maggie Oliver, I think many, many people watching GB News tonight will echo that sentiment. Thanks for the work you do. Thanks for keeping on going, and thank you for joining us on GB News tonight. Maggie Oliver, thank you very, very much for your time. Let's get some reaction now. Back in the studio, I'm joined by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, when you hear the testimony there of Maggie Oliver, how can it be correct that people who've been raped as children by these monsters are forced to face their abusers in the same towns where they were raped multiple times as children? And I put it to you today, if Shabana Mahmood is serious about deportations, these are the kind of scumbags that need to go first.
Yeah, I mean, they should be going back anyway. If they are Pakistani nationals, then they should be sent back home. So Maggie Oliver is absolutely right about that.
But it doesn't happen.
Well, I think there are two things going on here. One is actually the law about nationality, and the other one is obviously human rights. So if they're arguing human rights under the European Convention, that is being reviewed at the moment, the idea being that...
Do you have any faith that that review will give us anything that's beneficial towards people that have been raped by these monsters? Look, their right to a family life, their right to give a role model, the very fact that a rapist, a paedophile, can even be a role model is utterly grotesque. And I put it to you, the same legislation you're talking about there will be the same Achilles heel to Shabana Mahmood as it has every Home Secretary and every Prime Minister before them.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there are two different things here. You've got the nationality issue. So if they are Pakistani criminals, foreign criminals, very shortly they will be able to be sent back after conviction.
Do you believe that?
Well, that's the law that's going through Parliament.
It hasn't happened so far. Zero.
Well, it hasn't happened so far, but the law hasn't gone through. I mean, what they've done so far is that you should have gone back after 50% of your sentence. That's going to be reduced to 30%. And what is next happening is they'll go back on conviction. If they're dual nationals, it's a slightly different situation. So
because they can decide that they're not Pakistani.
No, we decide. No. We decide.
No, these monsters, they renounce their citizenship of Pakistan to dodge deportation, and the law's damn powerless.
If you have dual nationality, a British citizen and a Pakistani citizen, under British law, you are British first. What you can do, what the Home Secretary can do...
Change the law.
Well, no, what the Home Secretary can do is deprive them of their British citizenship.
That'll make them effectively stateless.
No, because as long as they're dual citizens, they've got a state to go to, because they would have Pakistan. You can deprive...
So why can't we do that and get these idiots out of the country?
The reason you can't do it is because then you get various complexities coming in. So, for instance, that America and Europe obey the same sort of principle that we do. If you start depriving dual nationals of their British citizenship, you have to have a damn good reason to do it. And
raping children's a pretty good reason.
Terrorism is the one you use. But if you start saying every heinous crime, we actually deport all dual nationals.
Yeah, it's good.
Americans as well,
yeah.
Australians.
Yeah.
What would you do about a triple nationality?
Who cares?
Well, hang on. But where do they go? But where do they go? If you're
anywhere but Britain. That's what a strong Home Secretary would do. That's what a strong Prime Minister would do. They'd change the law, they'd draw up a Bill of British Rights and get these morons out the country.
Well, they don't have to change the law, but the whole point about depriving someone of citizenship, it should be something done in rare circumstances where the nation is at threat. So espionage or terrorism.
This crosses that threshold. The multiple rape of British children over years while the authorities turn the other way, I put it to you, that crosses the threshold of most people's interpretation of what law is reasonable.
Yeah, but we're talking about crime there rather than terrorism or espionage, which are the...
So what?
Well,
paedophilia.
Well,
how bad does it have to get?
Because under the present system, what you're doing is, if somebody is declared not conducive to the public good...
Well, these are clearly not. They're paedophiles.
Well, yes, but
how is a foreign paedophile conducive to the British good?
But there are so many different crimes that could apply to too. So do we start doing it to everybody? Where do you actually stop if you start that process?
Well, a strong Home Secretary would make it on a case-by-case choice and put British citizens first. Nigel Nelson, we're going to continue this conversation throughout the rest of the show. Thank you very much. I'll come very shortly. We'll exclusively revealing the 321 companies that have faced fines totalling an astonishing £18 million simply in one quarter for hiring illegal migrant workers, including a government contractor. That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorby. And now time for an exclusive analysis from the Centre for Migration Control that reveals some truly astonishing data. The government has issued fines totalling a whopping £18 million, and that's just in one quarter to firms hiring illegal migrant workers in the United Kingdom. Now, a total of 321 firms have been given illegal working civil penalties. You can see on your screens right now the breakdown of firms across the country who've been handed out those fines. Now you'll see here the key culprits are restaurants and takeaways, car washers and corner shops and mini markets. But perhaps the most interestingly is amongst the 321 firms is Sodexo, a food services and facilities management company which has in the past held government contracts in the tens of millions of pounds. Well, I'm with the man now who's bringing us this exclusive report. It's the Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. And I'm joined by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Rob, welcome to the studio. A pleasure, as always, to have your company. Here we go again. Huge fines being doled out. Tell us about who's getting them.
Well, first of all, it's worth noting that this is actually down on the quarter previous, so something is clearly going on when it comes to actually implementing fines on companies hiring workers illegally. I think the geographical distribution that you saw on your screen, and I think the breakdown by company, really gives us a kind of indication of where that illegal migration crisis is actually taking place and what is really exacerbating it. We know that we've got roughly 1 million illegal migrants in this country. I think any government that's prepared to actually set about trying to remove, detain and deport all of those individuals really needs to start looking at where we are seeing them working, the companies that we are seeing them working. We need to start sending those companies nudge letters requiring that they produce sort of right-to-work checks. And then I think we actually also need to recognise that there are certain localities, local authorities, where this is more likely to be worthwhile directing resources to identify these individuals. The big point you made, of course, when it comes to Sodexo is this is a company that holds huge government contracts, still holds hundreds of government contracts in prisons, schools, HMRC. And I think we need to have a recognition that the government has a lot of power when it comes to addressing illegal working in this country. It needs to be doing a lot more to actually require that every single contractor it's bringing on board is properly conducting right-to-work checks on all of its workers. And if those companies aren't capable of doing it themselves, then that needs to be brought in-house by those government departments.
Rob Bates, as well as the quantity and the geographical spread, I was also fascinated looking through that list myself of the ethnicity or the background of the proprietors, the owners of these businesses. A huge amount of businesses I went through there in the takeaway sector in particular seem to be, what's the best way of putting this, people with non-Indigenous British names. Have you done some analysis on what the ratio of offenders could be in that context?
So of those 321 companies that received a fine, roughly 3/4 of them were either directed by individuals that were foreign nationals themselves or had names that were of an ethnic minority background.
3/4 of them.
3/4 of them. And I think what this indicates is, especially when you look at the list of companies that are actually given the right to sponsor workers by the Home Office, that we have a large problem here with companies, really low-grade takeaways, nail bars, salons and so on, being given the right to bring in workers. Those workers then after 5 years will likely see their work visa expire, and then what we will end up in a situation with in a large number of cases on this list is those individuals simply staying within that company and not actually returning home. So I think what this data does show is a kind of indication of how a government prepared to actually try and identify individuals should start looking at certain companies, the way that our list of registered sponsors is working, whether people are actually returning home properly, and we can do a lot more to require workers to actually make sure that people they have brought over here on a legal visa to start with are returning at the end of their visa.
So if we're having foreign nationals being employed by foreign nationals or people, who have an ethnic surname, as you say, we seem to have a problem with overstaying, and dare I say, there could be an overlap into modern slavery. You can't imagine, for example, these people will be paid a fair living wage and pay their full stamp.
I think that's a fair assumption to make, and we have seen it, of course, when it comes to companies in the care sector in particular, where individuals have kind of been promised the world, have arrived on a visa, and then because of situations out of that individual's control have ended up in a sort of position of a modern slavery type relationship. And I think it's an incredibly important thing that the government needs to recognise, that it's not just the problem of illegal migration in Britain and the costs associated with that, but there is also a burgeoning situation now when it comes to modern slavery in this country as well.
Nigel Nelson, let's bring you in now. On the one sense, you could say, hurrah, that these people are being nicked.
Yeah, that's my view.
They're getting fines, but it still represents one of the highest quarterly totals on record. And I put it to you, this is probably the tip of the iceberg.
Well, it may well be, but I mean, what has happened is the Home Office have been stepping up raids on these kind of places. So I'm not surprised then, because of that, the figures are going up. It strikes me the kind of punishment that quite small firms are getting, £40,000 up to £135,000, is pretty harsh. So, yes, I mean, everything that Rob said, I agree with totally, that we have to actually crack down on this. The Home Office is doing that quite right too.
And I wonder, in terms of the Sodexo contract, Rob Bates, I mean, as you say, they've taken large government contracts, and no one's suggesting they are knowingly employing people illegally. As you say, the chances are they're overstaying. Nevertheless, it shows they need a full audit of their workers' book.
I think so, and I think we need to recognise, we've got 1 million illegal migrants in this country. If you want to identify a large number of them, the government has a really big role to play in this. We have, hundreds of billions of pounds of public sector contracts going out each and every year, and, thousands of businesses involved in the procurement process. And there's a real opportunity here to actually start identifying those that are here illegally through that process and start requiring companies that are applying to produce the names of each individual that they are employing, and start for the Home Office to actually start vetting their right to works in-house if need be, because I think we've got an exploding situation here. No one really seems to have a grasp of the data. No one really needs to start to recognise where we go about gathering this data from, and I think there's a real opportunity for government prepared to do this, to look at public procurement as a starting point.
Nigel Nelson, Sir Keir Starmer would no doubt say this is all the basis for his compulsory digital ID to clamp down on illegal workers. But a lot of people watching this show will say, well, why should I, as a British citizen, have to surrender my freedom of movement, my identity, my information to the state because they can't clamp down on these ragbags?
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I think that ID is about something you want. So you get a passport because you want to travel, you get a driving licence because you want to drive. If they wanted to introduce an ID card for a right to work, that's something you want to do, that's fine. If that ID card, voluntarily, you could add things on top of that, like your educational qualifications, even your health records. If you choose to do that, that's fine. But it must be voluntary. So no universal ID card, basically.
Rob Bates, final word to you. ID cards, compulsory ID cards, they don't work in places like Germany. They have a huge illegal migrant problem there. They have a huge illegal working problem. Why would it work in Britain?
I don't think it would. And I don't think it is right that the British public should have to sacrifice liberties as a result of mismanagement of our borders. I think really what this data shows is if a government was to come in with a proper hostile environment on right-to-work checks, right-to-rent checks, bank accounts, driving licences and things like that, you can gather a huge amount of information and you can actually go about having individuals voluntarily returning themselves as well once they sort of realise that there isn't really a future for them in this country as well. So I don't think that's a route that we do need to go down at this time.
OK, Rob Bates, thank you very much. Always a pleasure. From the Centre for Migration Control, Nigel Nelson, superb. Now, coming up next, Sir Keir Starmer is to meet Mahmoud Abbas as the government continues its steps towards recognising a Palestinian state. Now, the meeting with the president of the Palestinian Authority comes in the wake of Monday's rush-hour terror attack in Jerusalem. And it comes as Israel's Premier Netanyahu warned Gaza residents to leave now. Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu says forces are now organising and assembling into Gaza City for ground manoeuvres, and there are live pictures there of Downing Street. We are expecting the Palestinian Premier to arrive shortly. Now, very shortly we'll bring you the moment you've all been waiting for, because tonight's debate is this. Is it time for the Tory-Reform to come together? I'll be joined in the studio by two heavyweights, Lee Anderson and Jacob Rees-Mogg, are waiting in the wings to take their swings. You'll not want to miss it.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Heading into tomorrow, and we'll see more sunshine across eastern areas. Can't rule out some showers across the west though. Fairly similar temperatures, so still remaining pleasant in any sunshine. But low pressure is still mostly dominating, particularly across western areas. A westerly flow still at times dragging in some showers and some longer spells of rain. And we could still see 1 or 2 showers, particularly across western parts of the UK. But once again, central areas, parts of the east will remain mostly dry. Plenty of clear skies, which means it is going to be turning cooler overnight. We could even see some mist and fog in prone areas by the morning. Some showers just starting to push into the southwest, otherwise mostly dry, and lows reaching around 7 to 8 degrees Celsius in Scotland. Heading into Tuesday, and it should be a fairly similar start as to what we saw this morning. Once again, plenty of clear skies, particularly across the northeast of Scotland, some mist and fog in places. Much cloudier start across Northern Ireland and northwestern parts of England, and a risk of showers here. Similar too across parts of Wales and southwest England, but for the bulk of the country, it should be a mostly dry and bright start to the day. And once again, across eastern areas, the sunshine will continue and it should remain mostly dry. But we'll see more clouds start to build in from the west still once again some showers. Southern parts of Wales, Devon and Cornwall could see plenty of showers by the time we reach the afternoon. Some could be heavy with some hail and thunder. And with that more cloud in the west, we could see more hazy spells of sunshine. But otherwise a mostly dry, settled day, fairly similar temperatures, highs reaching around 22 degrees Celsius in the southeast. Wednesday, though, perhaps a dry start in eastern areas, soon being replaced by further cloud and showers before we see persistent bands of rain push in from the west, turning quite blustery at times too, alongside some heavy bursts of rain. So quite an unsettled day on Wednesday, and the showers are still continuing for Thursday and Friday, but hopefully plenty of bright and sunny spells in between, where it should remain fairly pleasant.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubin. Now, over the weekend, the newly defected Reform member and the former Tory Cabinet Minister Nadine Dorries said this.
Need all the political talents on the right of centre, putting their shoulder to what needs to be done for the country. I think if you start from the point that you need everybody with the passion to make this country a better place at the helm, then I think that's a good place to start.
Well, this suggestion of a coming together of Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage has, as you might expect, unleashed a ferocious debate between a number of politicians and indeed the supporters of both parties. Well, we've got some breaking news for you now from Christopher Hope, our political editor. Sir Keir Starmer has slammed Nigel Farage as a plastic patriot at a mass meeting of Labour MPs. And the Prime Minister took aim at the Reform UK leader, accusing him of trying to whip up sanctions to be imposed on UK countries on a visit last week to the United States to highlight freedom of speech concerns. A lot to get stuck into there between my two guests, two heavyweights who may disagree on this issue. Former Conservative Cabinet Minister Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, as well as the current Reform UK Chief Whip, Lee Anderson. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Lee, I'm going to start with you. Nadine Dorries has come in, and the first thing on the table is let's do a merger between Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage Reform UK. Are you up for it?
No, definitely not. I mean, Nadine's a well-respected ex-cabinet member, and she's going to be a great member for us, but she's not a spokesperson for the party. You know, we've been quite clear on the matter. I've got a lot of time for Boris. I did support him, but, you know, that ship's sailed now, Martin. And when we're talking about pacts, I tell you what, one of the most popular questions I get asked when I'm out and about is, when is Jacob Rees-Mogg going to join the Reform Party?
Well, that's neatly given us a conduit into our next question. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg, well, answer that question first. I know you've been asked it many times. Is there any scintilla of hope you may cross the Reform UK?
I'm not following in my daughter's footsteps, wise and good that I think Mary is. I think the key thing is that Lee and I worked very well together in the House of Commons. We, at that point, took the same whip. We agreed on almost all the big issues. And we have a terrible, terrible government. And we have a government that is worse than any since Harold Wilson's days. And it's ruining the country. Economically damaging, climate change nonsense, the giving away of Chagos. All of this is being very badly done. On the right, we have a group of people in two different parties who agree on the overwhelming majority of policies. I just think it's in the national interest to work together. It's not for me to say the precise form of any deal, but we need to work together before an election, because we have a first-past-the-post system, to try and maximise that advantage and reverse what Labour has been doing and have a restoration of our constitution and the chance of success as a nation.
Lee Anderson, I put it to you that in 2019, well, you and I stood against each other, actually, in Ashfield. Nigel Farage stood down 300 candidates and gifted the Tories...
He didn't stand down in Ashfield, though, Martin,
No, because it was the Labour seat. I battled on against you, but my point is this. Mr Farage believes that he was never fully thanked for standing down, so isn't the lessons of history there a deal with the Conservatives can bite you on the backside?
No, you're right. And I came to Parliament in 2019 full of hope and optimism for this country, and it didn't happen, Martin. And I look at the state of the country now, and, you know, if we'd have had another 200 Jacob Rees-Moggs in the House, maybe things would have been different. But we didn't have that. We had a load of wets in, a load of Liberals. And we look at the state of our country now, the roads, the immigration system, the bus services, the fuel bills, the net zero, the taxes, the immigration, police not doing the job, all this stuff. You know, this happened under the Tories' watch. And I was quite embarrassed towards the end of the last Parliament as to how bad the country was getting. Yes, the Labour Party has made it worse, but you know what? We've got our reputation to think about, and I think if we're getting embedded with the Tories in the current state, it won't do us any good at all. You know, people out there want something completely different. They don't want more of the same.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, it came out over the weekend that you'd be prepared to advise Nigel Farage, or there's a rumour you may be... In what capacity might you advise Nigel Farage if they were to win power?
Nigel has neither asked for my advice, nor I think he wants it. The question I was asked was, would I be willing to explain how I think the House of Parliament works, how you pass legislation, how the structures of government work, because I've taken a long-standing interest in the operation of our Constitution. And I'd do that for Keir Starmer if he asked me. I mean, I would happily explain from my experience how do you get a bill from a good policy idea, or an idea, through to a bill, through to law. And I'd be more than happy to do that for anybody who asked me. I think it'd be arrogant for me to say that, even suggest that Nigel needs my advice. I think he can do this perfectly well without me, but I'm more than happy to use my experience.
And presumably, Anderson, that's the kind of advice that you'd be happy to take from...
I mean, it's a crying shame, like I said before, Martin, and I'm not blowing smoke anywhere, but that man sat there should be in Parliament. It's a crying shame he's not there. We see some of the MPs in there, quite frankly, shouldn't be there. I mean, I wouldn't give them a job sweeping up half of them.
Can I just interject, gentlemen, because on our screens now I've got live pictures. That is Sir Keir Starmer meeting Mahmoud Abbas. He's the Premier of Palestine. And I wonder if this is a clear indication towards Sir Keir Starmer recognising the state of Palestine. I wonder, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, can I get your take on that? I mean, is it the right time to be recognising Palestine at present?
It's a very silly thing to do. It's deeply foolish and indicates support for Hamas, who carried out that awful terrorist atrocity. There is at the moment no state of Palestine to recognise. It is a questionable legality under international law, which Keir Starmer so loves. It's a very odd thing to do. He's basically playing to the hard left of his party, who currently have him in a vice because the general trend of the government is in such difficulties.
OK, let's move back now to reform and this pact. If we could, presumably, Lee Anderson, you would welcome the expertise of somebody like Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg to be advising reform, because, you know, every party, especially a new party, needs that experience.
Yeah, I mean, if you want any advice on how that place over there runs, you know, the procedures, how the House works, anything to do with that, that man there would be the man that he'd ring up. You know, he was the leader of the House, a good leader as well. And like I say, Martin, I was hoping for a battle tonight. I didn't think he was going to put me on with Jacob. I wanted a Matthew Stadlen or a Nigel Nelson. But no, that man there should be in Parliament, and it's a crying shame. And I'll go back to it, Jacob. One of the most popular questions I get asked is, when is JRM, when is Jacob Rees-Mogg going to join Reform and get back in Parliament? It's a crying shame you're not there.
Thank you very much. And as I say, we worked very well together in Parliament. But why do I think reuniting the right is so important? It's because if you look at Starmer, he's got a majority but not a mandate. He's got a 170-seat majority, we did start with, on 33% of the vote. That means he can't actually do anything. The next government of the right needs to be able to do things. And to do that, it needs a majority and 45% plus of the vote. It only gets that if we work together.
But practically everybody from the Conservative Party said no chance of a pact. Nigel Farage said no chance of a pact. And it's a sign that the Conservatives are desperate.
No. It's not. I've been talking about a pact since UKIP days. I was in favour of a pact with UKIP, which David Cameron didn't tend to agree with me on, but never mind. I think in a first-past-the-post system, you have to work with those who broadly agree with you. And everyone says no to a pact until they say yes. Look at Nick Clegg and David Cameron in the garden at Downing Street when the question to Cameron is, a week ago you said the funniest joke you'd ever heard was Nick Clegg, leader of the Lib Dems, or words to that effect.
OK.
You can't admit to a pact until you do it.
So, Jacob, final word to Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson, would you accept a pact between the Conservatives and Reform, or at least would you accept the advice of Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg for the Reform Party?
I would accept the advice from Jacob. I wouldn't accept a pact. Look at the Tory party. I keep saying it's a shame. There's 121 MPs, 30 wet Liberals, there's 30 old classes, the proper Conservatives, and there's about 30 who haven't got a clue what they are. They're just there for the ride. OK, Lee Anderson, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, excellent debate. Wasn't quite a fallout, but I think we had a meeting of minds. Thank you both very much, gentlemen. Now, in a moment's time, I'll be joined by the man who has made a shocking new discovery about the government's Chagos deal. Yeah, guess what? Sir Keir Starmer looks like he's also been borrowing Diane Abbott's abacus. You're not going to want to miss this, folks.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. An unsettled couple of days to come across parts of Spain and Italy with some heavy showers around. But for the Canaries, actually, next couple of days, largely fine, apart from the odd shower around. Plenty of sunshine, actually, for parts of Portugal and western Spain. But for eastern Spain, the Balearics, parts of Italy, southern France, some heavy and thundery downpours around. But for much of Greece and Turkey, fine a couple of days to come, with temperatures here reaching the high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain. So he can say whatever he wants. A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host tonight, Martin Daubney. Now, one of the most bizarre moves the government has made in its first year in office is, of course, the Chagos Islands deal. Some people are calling it the surrender. And having agreed to hand over the islands to Mauritius because of a non-binding international court ruling, a row unfolded over how much we might pay Mauritius for the pleasure.
The net overall cost is therefore £3.4 billion overall.
Well, then speculation unfolded, suggesting the government was misleading the public, and Keir Starmer next said this.
The figures being bandied around are absolutely wild of the mark. The deal is well over a century.
Well, it turned out the government's own analysis suggested the cost over 100 years was actually £35 billion, 10 times more than was originally suggested by the PM. Well, now a new analysis from the Taxpayers Alliance suggests this internal analysis could have even underestimated the cost too, with their own estimates putting the number closer to £47 billion. Well, I'm now joined by Darwin Friend, who's the head of research at the Taxpayers Alliance. Darwin, what's a few billion pounds between friends? It seems that the Prime Minister's maths is in the same school as Diane Abbott's.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Martin, for having me on the show this evening. And you're quite right. I think the assumptions the government have used to try and calculate the cost of this deal over the 100-year period have been overly generous. I mean, the £3.4 billion figure that the Prime Minister initially quoted is the net present value of the deal, which is calculated using what the government expects inflation to be in the long term, and then also a discount rate, which accounts for the fact that money now is going to be worth more than money in the future. And what we've done today is release research which actually challenges those assumptions by using what the market actually expects inflation to be in the future and long-term gilt yields. And if we were to do that for the net present value, the figure goes from £3.4 billion, as the Prime Minister quoted, to £4.1 billion, a £700 million increase. And if we look at the cash terms, so the amount we're actually going to give Mauritius over the course of this deal, it rises from £35 billion, as the government has estimated, to £47 billion. That's a quarter of the NHS annual budget, or equivalent to around about 14 aircraft carriers. Now, I think me, you and your listeners, Martin, think that that money could be better spent elsewhere.
How did they get their numbers so cataclysmically wrong?
Well, the way they've done it is really on this inflation figure, Martin. What they've done is they've used the OBR forecast for what inflation is expected to be in the future based on what it's been in the past. And that's overly generous. That looks at inflation at being around about 2.3% over the period that we're looking at. What we've done is use what the markets expect inflation to be, which is generally more accurate because those are the people that the government's going to be borrowing money from after all. And what they expect inflation to be is 2.9% over the long term, so 0.6 percentage points higher. And I think given the fact that the cost is likely to be more than the government estimates, what we need to see now really from the Chancellor is her walking through to number 10, having a word with the Prime Minister and saying we need to scrap this deal, not only because it's bad for Britain, but more fundamentally because she needs the funds to fix the fiscal black hole that she's created.
OK, thank you very much for that revelation. We have to leave it there. That's Darwin Friend, Head of Research at the Taxpayers Alliance. Thank you very much. Now, we've got some dramatic breaking news this past evening, and it's this. The French government has sensationally collapsed after Prime Minister Francois Bayrou lost the confidence vote in the National Assembly. Now, French MPs voted overwhelmingly to oust the beleaguered PM in a margin of 364 to 194, a whopping 170 seats majority. Now, the French PM has called the vote of confidence in an attempt to force MPs to adopt his austerity budget. Now, defeat had been considered inevitable, but the Prime Minister didn't go down without a fight, warning MPs, you can get rid of the government, but you can't get rid of reality. Now, I'm joined in the studio by Nigel Nelson and Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'm going to come to you first. I assume you're crying into your champagne that the French have lost their fourth PM in recent years.
Well, France has been in a state of turmoil since that sad day in July 1789, when they had their terrible bloody revolution. And they've had constant changes of government. They're on their fifth republic. We've never needed this nonsense. We have had a stable constitutional system since 1689, and France has not. And they've got used to an extravagant way of life, which they can't afford. And now they use a foreign currency. The euro is a foreign currency, so they can't print or devalue their way out of their excessive debt and deficit.
Nigel Nelson, this is Emmanuel Macron's 7th Prime Minister. How many more times can they shoot the messenger? Well, they realise actually it's Macron that's the problem.
It may be now that they're going to have another snap election, because it's the only way out of this. Basically, Francois Bayrou fell for exactly the same reason that Michel Barnier did before him. It's over the budget they're trying to get through. Debt in France is 114% of GDP, much worse than ours, and they need budget cuts badly. And because you've got a hung assembly, they can't go through. So it may well be that Macron now will say, right, we've tried everything, let's go for an election.
And if that happens, somebody who couldn't contain their delight this evening was Marine Le Pen. Could this be a way, do you think, for Macron to completely get the boot and for a complete sweeping change of politics in France?
Ultimately, she can't stand at the moment because of an embezzlement charge, so she can't stand for public office. But as far as National Rally are concerned, they want an election. They're running 33% in the polls. They would be the ones most likely to benefit.
Thank you, Nigel Nelson. And, of course, Jacob Rees-Mogg, if you can't get enough of the man. You are, of course, up next for State of the Nation. So, Jacob, what's on your menu?
The most important thing on my menu is that this tube strike is voluntary because the government won't use the power it's got to stop it. The Conservatives passed an act requiring a 40% service to be carried out. Transport for London can invoke this act, the tube strike could be stopped, but the government and Sadiq Khan won't do it. So it's a voluntary support by the government for something that's bringing London to a halt and having profound effects on the UK economy. As I was walking here, I heard those police whistles in the distance. It's all right for them. They've got the road being cleared for the grandees to go through, whereas everyone else is stuck in traffic that is self-inflicted because they won't use the law to stop their trade union bosses.
Is this a taste of things to come? We're seeing billions of pounds shoveled towards the unions, but it doesn't seem to stop the strikes.
Well, the strike's going to get worse because the Labour Party is currently in office but not in power. The reshuffle showed that. The failure on welfare showed that. They have lost their ability to guide the nation, and the union paymasters are taking back control, which is, of course, what they've done with previous Labour governments.
And I believe you also might have a speech from Prince Harry in your show. I bet you can't contain your excitement.
Well, I'm very excited. Normally, we have the President of the United States as a special guest who kindly contributes to State of the Nation on a regular basis. But now we're going into the royal family. It gets better and better.
We have to do there. Jacob Rees-Mogg, thank you very much. Here's next. I'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. See you then.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Heading into tomorrow, and we'll see more sunshine across eastern areas. Can't rule out some showers across the west, though. Fairly similar temperatures, so still remaining pleasant in any sunshine. But low pressure is still mostly dominating, particularly across western areas. A westerly flow still at times dragging in some showers and some longer spells of rain. And we could still see 1 or 2 showers, particularly across western parts of the UK. But once again, central areas, parts of the east will remain mostly dry. Plenty of clear skies, which means it is going to be turning cooler overnight. We could even see some mist and fog in prone areas by the morning. Some showers just starting to push into the southwest, otherwise mostly dry, and lows reaching around 7 to 8 degrees Celsius in Scotland. Heading into Tuesday, and it should be a fairly similar start as to what we saw this morning. Once again, plenty of clear skies, particularly across the northeast of Scotland, some mist and fog in places. Much cloudier start across Northern Ireland and northwestern parts of England, and a risk of showers here. Similar too across parts of Wales and southwest England, but for the bulk of the country, it should be a mostly dry and bright start to the day. And once again, across eastern areas, the sunshine will continue and it should remain mostly dry. But we'll see more clouds start to build in from the west west, still once again some showers. Southern parts of Wales, Devon and Cornwall could see plenty of showers by the time we reach the afternoon. Some could be heavy with some hail and thunder. And with that more cloud in the west, we could see more hazy spells of sunshine. But otherwise a mostly dry, settled day, fairly similar temperatures, highs reaching around 22 degrees Celsius in the southeast. Wednesday, though, perhaps a dry start in eastern areas, soon being replaced by further cloud and showers before we see persistent bands of rain push in from the west, turning quite blustery at times too, alongside some heavy bursts of rain. So quite an unsettled day on Wednesday, and the showers are still continuing for Thursday and Friday, but hopefully plenty of bright and sunny spells in between, where it should remain fairly pleasant.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and